Joining us now is Aurel Braun at the University of Toronto. He's a professor of international relations and political science. Professor, what do you make of what you've heard from Moscow and from Washington so far in these talks in Geneva? There doesn't seem to be much room for any optimism here.
There is some, I would suggest, because they are still talking, and they have decided that once they receive written answers in Moscow from Secretary Blinken, they are going to have another meeting. So that is certainly preferable to an armed conflict. If there is an armed conflict, it is unpredictable, it is very dangerous. So diplomacy is certainly preferable and understandable why efforts are made. But it is also the case that Russia, which outside of nuclear weapons is certainly not a superpower, has played a very effective game of poker, if you like. It has used a weak hand very skillfully, very effectively. It has managed to induce the United States and the West to negotiate without preconditions, even though they have not de-escalated the large military deployment that they have around Ukraine. They have managed to get the United States and NATO to treat them as an equal. And there has been no discussion about Russia having to reverse the occupation of Crimea, which they achieved in 2014. The big question, however, is whether Russia will perhaps overplay its hand.
Well, I guess my question to you is, we've seen one round of diplomatic move or negotiations or talks, if you will, one after another, and the two sides haven't been able to really narrow the differences here. So if they haven't been able to do anything up until this point, what makes us believe anything is really going to change?
We'll have to see the contours of any agreement that might come about. The demands made by Russia were declared to be non-starters by United States. They are not prepared, and the other countries are not prepared to impose the kind of restrictions and reversals of NATO developments that Russia is demanding. But there may be all sorts of other possibilities where they may reach some kind of agreement on intermediate nuclear forces in Europe, on notification maneuvers, on various confidence-building measures. So they may be able to massage some of the differences, but clearly there are very, very sharp differences, and this is why Moscow has achieved a great deal just in terms of symbolism, in terms of getting treated as an equal, in terms of forcing the United States to the negotiating table. And if they press those demands, it can backfire. It could alarm a lot of other countries. It may be possible.
You bring up a really good point. Russia keeps saying that, they have no plans to invade Ukraine. So why mass 100,000 Russian troops on the Ukraine border when you have no plans to invade? Is this simply a bargaining chip to get what Moscow wants here?
This is what we don't know. It is evident that they would like to destabilize Ukraine. They, in the Kremlin, do not recognize the validity of Ukraine as an independent state or of Ukrainian nationality. That, I think, Russia will find very difficult to pursue because there's increasing support for Ukraine, but also by constantly pushing for a kind of written guarantee of no NATO enlargement, there may be other states that may want to join NATO that are increasingly alarmed at Russian military moves. And I'm thinking of Finland and of Sweden, which have been favorably disposed towards Russia, but now are very alarmed by these military moves. They are engaging in closer cooperation with NATO. And should they wish to join NATO, they meet the criteria. Ukraine does not. Even if Ukraine wanted to join NATO most clearly and the population voted for it, they do not meet the criteria. But Sweden and Finland would. And what would Russia do in that kind of situation?
Right.
Because that would be very problematic for Moscow.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Professor Aurel Braun, thank you very much.